Hey, keto freaks. Do you know someone who desperately needs low-carb, high-fat therapy? I'm holding my first Keto Boot Camp 7-day retreat in Las Vegas, Nevada on the second week of January 2017. Now, this isn't for everyone. It's for newcomers who need personal guidance through the first week of a keto lifestyle. I'm renting a beautiful house about 20 minutes from the Strip. It's got a big, beautiful kitchen, a nice pool, a hot tub, a massage chair, and plenty of room to spread out. We're going to cook together as we discuss the science behind the ketogenic way of life. We'll venture into the real world, restaurants and grocery stores, so you'll see exactly what you need to do to keep it going once you're back home. If you know someone who needs to save their own life, as Richard and I have done for ourselves, send them over to retreat.2keto.com. Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In just 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all my markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm about 70-ish pounds lighter, 74 today.
Nice.
With no signs of diabetes or heart disease.
Yeah, this is Richard Morris in Canberra, Australia, and I've been on a ketogenic diet for over 2 years. When I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. And within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared. I've also lost about 70 pounds and I've completely turned my health around.
And this show is a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for more than 2.5 years in ketosis.
Yeah.
And hopefully that might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah, we're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice, but we are keen to share our own experiences. Yep. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
Nah.
So we've done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind them. We hope to share some of that research. And where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite research supporting any claims that we make.
Yep. You'll probably work out pretty quickly that we're both foodies.
Sure are.
We love to cook and we love to eat. In every episode, we both share a keto recipe that cannot be ignored. So let's start podcast episode number 35, The Ideal Body Weight Show. Well, Richard, do we have any corrections or apologies from last week?
Yeah, there was only one correction. I mentioned last week that I got a tweet from Nick Mailer suggesting that the amounts of aspartate that could have inhibited ketogenesis was ludicrously low. He was referring to aspartate available from eating aspartame, the artificial sweetener.
Oh.
So the jury is still out with regards to the amount of aspartate you get from food.
The amino acid aspartate.
That's it, yeah. That's what I proposed during the protein controversy show, was stopping the production of ketones when you eat too much protein. So I'm doing an experiment. I've done half of that experiment at the end of my last 5-day fast, and I'll do the other half of that experiment at the end of my next 5-day fast. But basically what I did was, at the end of my fast, I ate 200 grams of just egg white. Now, egg white's got something like 2% aspartic acid, aspartate in it. I went for a bike ride, 60-minute bike ride to raise my ketones, and this was after 5 days of fasting. And then I ate the 200 grams of egg whites, and I tracked my ketones every 15 minutes, and there was a severe drop-off. So next time I fast, I'll do the same without eating egg white and just see what my body does when it doesn't eat anything. Maybe I might try and find some protein that doesn't have a lot of aspartate in, so as I can, remove any possible confounding factors and see really whether eating food with aspartate in it does actually cause a drop in ketogenesis.
And did you measure your ketones before you ate the egg whites? And after your bike ride?
Yes, I measure them every 15 minutes for the entire duration. And I'm going to do the same without eating egg whites next time. And I'll do it. I wanted to do it after 5 days of fasting so that I removed any possible confounding lead-in factors.
Right.
So I'll do the same thing again, and this one will be without eating. So I guess it's a control for that for the first experiment.
You didn't see any leveling off of ketones even? You just saw a continuous drop?
Yeah, I saw a plummet. As soon as, probably about 45 to 60 minutes after I ate the egg whites, my ketones just dropped off the face of the earth. So
wow.
It's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to try and repeat the same experiment, and I probably might do it again a third time, eating egg whites again, and just to make sure that I'm repeating the same conditions, and I should have some meaningful data. Again, that's only meaningful for my body, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah. And you do also have to remember what, people like Ron Rosedale say, which is when you are measuring ketones in your blood, even in your blood, you're measuring what's not being used.
That's
you're measuring
right.
what is being secreted,
Yeah.
but not being taken up by the brain and other organs.
Yeah. Well, see, that's why I did the exercise to basically that drew down a little bit on my glucose, because red blood cells moving oxygen around, working a little bit harder, they eat a little bit more glucose, and that really did, it raised my ketone levels. As you say, it's the bit that you're not using. And then when I had egg whites in my 200 grams of egg whites, they definitely dropped off. So we'll see.
They went somewhere. Where did they go?
They were used. I used them.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, my rate of production was less than my rate of consumption. That's where they went.
Right. That's all we know. We don't really know if you were producing less. You might have been using more or some combination.
I'm not sure how to control for that, but we shall.
I don't know either.
It's interesting anyway.
It is interesting.
So that's my errata for last week's show.
All right. So let's recap what a ketogenic diet is. A ketogenic diet is any diet that puts you in a state of nutritional ketosis, and that happens when your insulin is low enough so that your liver can burn body fat. The byproduct of burning that body fat are ketones.
Sure.
Listen to the ketone show if you want more depth, but those ketones are a wonderful source of fuel for your brain and other cells. So the macronutrient ratios that we typically start with are 20 grams or less of carbohydrates per day.
That'll get just about everybody into ketosis, because your body doesn't have a choice. It can't live on glucose because you're not giving it enough.
Yep.
So it has to burn fat, and your brain needs you to make ketones, so it will do that.
Yep. As far as protein, that scales with how much lean body mass you have.
Yep.
And we use a moderate protein recommendation per Finney and Volek's book, The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living. That's 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. Mm-hmm. And the rest is fat.
Yeah. Get all of your energy from fat.
Yeah, whether it's the fat on your plate or that fat from that Krispy Kreme that you ate a decade ago.
Yes, I'm still feasting out on that Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, as we should. So, Richard, how was your week?
Yeah, it was good. I was watching a couple of the videos on the Keto Summit, and I saw one from Ron Rosedale, and I've seen him talk before. We mentioned him on the Protein Controversy show. He did a great talk at Low Carb Vale last year, and a bunch of us are all going to Low Carb Breckenridge, which is the 2017 version of that. So hopefully we'll get to meet him.
Yep.
So I watched his Keto Summit presentation about protein levels. Mm-hmm. And so I did a little bit of research to see what the Australian nutrient reference values were for protein for a 51 to 70-year-old man. I just turned 51, so I'm just in that category. And the nutrient reference values in Australia are very similar to the US RDI, recommended daily intake.
And this is a minimum?
This is a minimum, yeah. And so the minimum for Australia, for an Australian 51-year-old who is doing moderate exercise, which most of my exercise is moderate, some of it's insane, but but most of it's moderate. So is 0.68 grams per kilogram of lean body mass.
That's low.
Which is very low. The level that I've been on for 2.5 years has been between 1 and 1.5.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say if you're having a plateau, try lowering your protein. And of course others say try lowering your fat, and it's a matter of working out what works for you.
Yeah.
But I thought I might do an experiment. So every 3 months, I get a blood test as part of my normal doctor visit. So what I decided to do is this time I would get a DEXA scan at the same time I get a blood test. Now, a DEXA scan is an X-ray that does a cross-section across your body and works out how much of your body is lean muscle, how much of it is body fat, and it gives you a precise number for your lean body mass. And it also gives you a precise number for what percentage of body fat you have. And this will be in about a month and a half's time. I'll have established my baseline of how much lean body mass I have, and then I will eat consistently for 3 months the Australian nutrient reference values.
So the minimum value of protein
that's it.
Australia recommends for life.
For an adult male at 51 years of age. For what it's worth, for a female, it's 0.60, so it's even less. But for a male, it's 0.68, and I'll put a link in the show notes to the documentation for that.
Okay.
So what I propose to do is have a DEXA scan, eat 0.68 grams per kilogram of lean body mass for 3 months, and then get a second DEXA scan. So I'm getting a bookended DEXA scan either side of this, so I can see precisely how much lean body mass I've lost. It will also tell me how much I need to make up on the other side. So I'll probably get a third DEXA scan 6 months hence, and then I'll hopefully have gotten back to any lean body mass that I've lost.
I love it.
But I'm curious to find out precisely how much I lose if I follow the Australian standards.
If you lose any at all, you may not.
I may not. And I propose I know exactly how much exercise I'm doing because I track that. And so I'm going to be able to maintain my exercise rate consistently. The same exercise rate that I've had almost for the past year, I'll be continuing for the next 6 months during at least the 3 months of the experiment.
Wow.
It's going to be an experiment in low protein to see exactly what the effects are of following the Australian standards for
I love it. Richard Morris taking one for the team.
We shall see. So anyway, so that's my week. I've come up with this cunning plan and we'll see how it goes.
Good.
So how was your week, Carl?
I had a really good week, Richard. After the protein controversy show, and I started going and watching some more videos. Ron Rosedale is an advocate of even lower protein for people like us, which means overweight, extra body fat. Obviously, we were type 2 diabetic. We don't have blood sugar in that range anymore, but we have this deranged metabolism that we talk about. For weightlifters and for thin people, it's going to be different. Even the experts seem to agree on that. But after this show, I started cutting down the amount of protein that I ate, and it had a dramatic effect.
Yeah, what was that?
Well, at least the first day that I did it, I had a whoosh.
Yeah.
You know what that is.
But all that water weight whooshes out of you.
Yeah, water weight or something. I mean, it was just a rapid weight loss, and it was basically 4 pounds in one day. And
wow.
I sat on my butt and worked all day. I started with coconut oil coffee, keto coffee, and maybe even 3 tablespoons in 3 cups, a tablespoon per cup.
Wow.
And it was a lot. And then man, let me tell you something. I have perfected the keto chocolate mousse.
Okay.
And here's how. And we'll post the recipe link again because it's so good. But instead of mixing the xylitol crystals in the mousse, I put a little heavy cream in a Pyrex with the xylitol crystals, stir it up, put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, stir it up, another 30 seconds, stir it up until they're all dissolved.
Doesn't that split the cream a bit?
Yeah, it splits the cream.
Right.
But I don't want to use water, right?
No, of course.
I have to use a fat source.
Yeah,
it does split the cream, but I only use enough cream to melt the xylitol, you know what I mean? Just a little bit to get it wet.
So not all the cream that you're going to use in the recipe. It's just like a small amount just to get the xylitol out of crystal form, yeah.
Exactly. Maybe a couple of tablespoons.
Sure.
And so then I put that in the fridge for a little bit to just cool down because I don't want it hot going into my whipped cream.
Oh, no.
And then I whip the cream, and I use a pint of cream and maybe quarter to a half cup of xylitol, depending on how sweet I want it. Yeah, and when I'm whipping cream for the mousse, I don't whip it all the way like I would with regular whipped cream because it's going to thicken up when you add the cocoa powder. So I just whip it until it starts to get a little viscous. And then I add heaping helping of cocoa powder. And you do this to taste because some people like it more chocolate. I like Hershey's Special Dark Cocoa Powder, personally.
Okay.
And I use a lot of it. It's very dark, it's a dark brown.
Yeah.
And then I mix in some vanilla. I mix in the sweetener. And I also put in salt. And salt is really, really good with chocolate.
So just a pinch?
No.
Not
no.
least.
Like
you put a fair bit?
I'm talking a half a teaspoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It makes it salty, sweet, chocolatey. You ever had salted caramel?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the flavor. You get that really, really good chocolate. It brings out the chocolate flavor.
Yeah.
By the way, if you take a hand blender after dumping all that cocoa powder on your whipped cream and bring it up to full speed, you're going to get a snoot full of cocoa powder.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, you have to mix it by hand.
Mix it with a spoon first.
Mix it with a spoon first. And then I make a bunch of whipped cream, and bring it to soft peaks, just as you normally would do, with the same technique of melting dissolving the xylitol. And if you want to use Swerve or Splenda or whatever you're using, that's up to you. But I use xylitol, right?
Yeah.
So then I put both of these in the fridge and let them get happy for an hour or so. And let me tell you, I could live on this stuff. I was eating it all day. And for protein, all I had was a couple of slices of prosciutto.
Right.
And I also had my recipe this week, which is going to be a garlic mushroom brie spread.
Nice.
That I make myself from real brie. All right. So leave me alone, French people. I know I'm a heretic, but
do you cut the crusts off though?
I do. I'm not a rind guy. I know.
Yeah.
No, you hate me. Go ahead. I don't care.
No, I don't. There are some people who are rind people. I used to not be. I used to cut mine off, but I've just gotten used to it.
Yeah, and that's fine. And in my recipe, I'll make a mention of that if you are a rind person, you want to add some of that in there, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you. What do I know? So anyway, the result was 4 pounds lost. And
wow.
I just couldn't believe how full and satisfied I was eating chocolate mousse and full fat triple cream brie spread on cheese crisps and a couple of slices of prosciutto. And that's all I had. And man, I felt so great.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible, really, isn't it?
Yep. So that was my week. I lowered my protein, and at least for a couple of days so far, it's been working for me. Before we go any further, we want to talk a little bit to our Facebook forum users.
Yeah.
In a format that we can be effective. I'm not going to say we have problems, but we have. I would say we have normal growing pains of any large group.
We've got a large group of people, and it's only getting larger. I think we've almost got 5,000 people in the group.
We got over 5,000. We got 5,200.
5,200. Wow. So 200 in the past couple of days. So
yeah,
it's really growing in leaps and bounds. And the problem is, of course, Facebook wasn't really designed for that kind of thing. And so messages pass through very quickly. And you really can't search that effectively in a Facebook forum. So,
but we have noticed a trend. We've noticed a trend that it's very difficult for people to understand the intent behind other people's messages. Sometimes people take what would normally be a constructive tip as a personal slam and get offended. And then, why are you yelling at me? I'm not yelling at you, in all caps. And then it ends up with somebody leaving the group.
Yeah.
And so we have these miscommunications that just happen over and over again. And, it's going to happen. But we want to limit that as much as we possibly can. And I don't know how to say it except just be nice.
Yeah.
And recognize that other people may not be giving you a personal slam. Just the best thing to do is just try to engage people in conversations about the science rather than, the passioned plea to do this, to not do that, that kind of thing.
A good example might be fasting. Everybody fasts in different ways. Some people have to eat fat during a fast. And some people like to only accept the biblical term of fast. Some people only accept the dictionary term, and there are arguments breaking out that if somebody is in a fat fast because they don't have a lot of body fat to keep their metabolic rate up, that they aren't really fasting. Well, they are. They are engaging autophagy, and they're having an insulin holiday, and they're getting two of the biggest advantages of a water fast without the big disadvantage of your metabolic slowdown if you don't have sufficient body fat. So that's an example. People are leaving the forum, leaving the group, upset because they were called out for not really doing a fast, and unfortunately, somebody leaving the group might be somebody who misses out on following through with a ketogenic diet and saving their life. So, just be a little bit more excellent to each other.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, everyone that leaves the group is potentially somebody who could get frustrated and go back to something that would be much worse than the little what you see as a little transgression, and the fact is we're all human beings. We all screw up. Richard and I screw up, and we freely admit when we do.
We certainly do.
And the idea is that we want to be as supportive as possible, and that means if somebody comes into the group asking a question that you've answered for the nth time, you don't tell them to
read the FAQ.
Shut up and read the fact. Don't ask such a dumb question. There are no such things as dumb questions. And the right answer is it's all explained here, and give them a link. And the answer to that is usually thank you very much.
Okay, well that's our moralizing for the day, I think.
Yeah. Just we're going to try to be nicer.
We are, and thank you to all of the awesome people in our group. We have thousands of wonderful people in that group. They do most of the work. All Carl and I do is just pop in every now and then and make sure that everything's going. All Carl and I do is pop in every now and then to make sure things are humming along. So.
Yeah, and our admins are wonderful. Our admins are always on the lookout for bots and spammers and that kind of thing, and they're there to help, and they do a great job. So hats off to our administrators. We couldn't do it without them. It's just getting so big. We do want to also state our intention to create a forum.
We do.
A forum is a place different than Facebook where knowledge seems to just recirculate. And if it's not on the first 20 messages that you see, you're going to ask a question, and it's very difficult to sort of curate that knowledge. Yeah. Whereas in a forum, you can go into a topic that's already been asked, and the answer has been given, and you can find the most popular answer that's voted on and all of that stuff. So it's much easier for you to do research searching through a forum than it is asking a question on Facebook, and you're more apt to get a better answer.
Yeah. So I guess we're saying that we will eventually outgrow Facebook, and we're making plans for that. Yep.
And with that, it's time for
Mail!
We're justified and we don't need no alibi.
Mail!
I love this bit. It's my favourite bit of the week.
Mail!
Mail.
Mail.
Yeah, we've got a mail from Lily on our Facebook group, and Lily says, I'm down close to 70 pounds since January of 2016. Well done, Lily.
Yes.
I think that's a very common story. Just about everybody loses an immediate 70 pounds in the first 6 months or so. Yeah. Some fast and some slow. But So Lily goes on. She says, Carl inspired me to do some moving/exercise. I decided to take a walk around my neighbourhood. Dreading it because the last time I walked around my neighbourhood, I was in a world of pain. I barely made it to the end of the block and back, and well, that was about 70 pounds ago, so I decided maybe it's time to try. So I walked around the block one Monday. It was easy, no pain.
Yeah.
I walked around the block twice on Tuesday.
Yeah.
3 times on Wednesday.
Awesome.
And on Thursday, 4 times.
Yeah, that's great.
No pain, not gasping for breath. I felt like a kid when you get a new toy and you just want to play with it, except I am the toy. I keep wanting to walk around the block to see if I can still do it.
Maybe it was a freak of nature.
I know. I kind of feel like that way about my lake, about cycling around my lake.
Yeah.
Anyway, So Lily says, in all seriousness, I'm just going to the mailbox last year was painful. I am so very grateful that I can do this. I feel light. I still have 50 pounds or more to lose, but I feel so much better. I wouldn't trade this feeling for anything in the world.
Yeah.
Someone who has never been heavy probably would not understand the joy of being able to comfortably walk, but it's something I do not take for granted.
Yeah.
Many of the wrong people in this world are rich. They have lots of money, but are short on character. Carl Franklin and Richard Morris should be very rich men for all they've done to help others. Thanks, Lily. We're enjoying this. We really are. So Lily says, you've done more for me in the last 4 months than any medical people have ever done for me. Sincerely, thank you from the bottom of my healthier heart. May God bless you both tenfold for all that you do.
Wow.
Thank you very much, Lily.
What an inspiring story.
What an inspiring story. And the really good thing about our Facebook group is that all of our people who do this for themselves turn around and help other people.
That's
and
right.
It's becoming a very powerful place.
Yeah, and we can't really take credit for what your body has done for you.
No.
You did that, Lily. You decided what to eat and what not to eat, and we pointed you to the science, but and we could take credit for that. But certainly, we didn't invent this way of eating, and it's been around for millions of years.
It has. We just told you what worked for us, and we're just really grateful that it worked for you too.
Yep. Well done. Karen, and this is our friend Karen Mangicotti, married to Mark Miller, who was on the Cancer Show, and she's definitely going to be on this show soon. She's got great stories. But she said, and I thought this was appropriate to our show today, putting this out there because some others may be feeling the same, even if they don't realize it. I miss my fat. I was cushiony and soft, and I was more cuddly and less cold. I liked taking up space and feeling powerful. Now I feel more scrawny and weaker, which is a total illusion. I'm stronger now.
Yeah.
I know this is the mind's resistance to change, and I love the way my mind and body feel, but these are real feelings too.
Sure.
And I wonder if some may sabotage themselves because they have these feelings they may never acknowledge. Wow, that's amazingly honest, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, a journey to healthy is not always, hooray, there are losses as well as gains. We can lose friends who resent our journey, and we lose some fat that has kept us safe and warm. There are gains as well, and I'm embracing them and powering on like a effing keto warrior, but also this.
Yes, also that.
I think a sign of wisdom is being able to hold contradictions in your mind without freaking out.
Yeah.
You know? And this is one of those contradictions. It's like one of those paradoxes, that you just have to be okay with. It's a paradox.
I feel stronger, but I also felt stronger when I was a big man and had momentum, you could say. I definitely hear what she's saying, and I've felt some of the same feelings myself. And I think she's right. It is important to acknowledge the fact that there are some things about being fat that maybe we did like, and maybe we need to acknowledge that.
It is sort of a barrier, a psychological barrier that you have, and a physical barrier to being honest with yourself and other people. It was sort of a defense mechanism at some point. I mean, you can say that after the fact. I don't think anybody sets out in the morning to say, I'm really feeling defensive today. I think I'll be fat. I think I'll eat some more. Yeah. Doesn't happen that way.
That's not how that works.
Yeah, but you can see people's resistance to losing it might be because, now I've got to put it all out there, and I don't have anything shielding me before. But physically, I've noticed I stub my toes more now, and I think I figured out why.
Because you can see them.
Well, yeah, sort of. I'm used to having more space between me and a table.
Oh, yes.
And so my feet never approached the foot of the table, whereas now I'm closer and whack. And I'm stubbing my toes all the time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just not used to being that close to things that I could stub my toes on.
Yeah, I have a theory that as we lose weight, our moments of force all change, and so our brain has to reprogram. So some of the opportunity for the brain to reconstitute the body but not necessarily lose weight may be due to, in part, to the brain just not wanting to reprogram. So it says, well, we'll add some muscle, because we need less body fat, and we'll just keep the weight about stable. Because, I went through 18 months of gaining and losing the same 5 pounds. Yeah. And in that time, I went from a waist size it was like 46 to 48 inch waist size to a 34 to 36 inch waist size. So that's a significant difference in that time. And yet my weight didn't really change a lot in that time. So I do have a suspicion that might be involved. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So the final one is from Latonya, and she also left a message in our Facebook forum, and she said, I'm a little discouraged. I'm considering another diet. I've seen amazing weight loss with a keto lifestyle, so I would like to stick with it, but the weight just isn't coming off me. I started on August the 24th, so that's about a month and a half ago, and I lost 5 pounds the first week. This week, the scale is going back and forth between 1.5 pounds. I understand the 5 pounds isn't bad, but typically I lose more since I'm larger. I'm tracking in MyFitnessPal and I'm walking at least 30 minutes 5 days a week, and I've increased my water intake, and I welcome all suggestions. Please help.
Well, I can start just by saying you're not alone. If you listen to the female show that Brenda and Kim did, Brenda Zorn and Kim Howerton, they highlighted this issue that women sort of lose weight on keto differently, or at a different pattern, or that tend to not lose a lot of weight at first while the hormones are readjusting and all of this.
Yeah.
They think this is why it is. And then all of a sudden it happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely that there is a stage after your initial water weight loss that your body needs to readjust, and everybody's going to react differently there. I'm going to link in the show notes a link to my blog post about my first year of low-carb, high-fat eating, and it includes a chart of my weight loss over that first year. And you can see in the first week, I lost a lot of weight. I went from 136 kilograms down to 128 kilograms. It was a massive loss.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah, and then I kind of had a retracement. On week 3, I actually gained weight. And I was a bit disappointed at that time. I thought, there's something going wrong here. And I was quite frustrated as well. I guess it's important to know that first weight loss that you lose, it's like an accounting change from a system that burns glucose to a system that burns fat.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we're essentially jettisoning a small tank of glucose that we use when we're glucose burners because we don't need it. And that has maybe 5 to 10 pounds of weight, and most of that weight is actually stored as water. That glucose is stored in a hydrated form.
Glycogen.
Yeah, glycogen. So you pee it out. And that happened to Latonya. So that actually shows that what she's doing is correct.
Yes.
She has gotten to the point of losing her water weight. She switched over from burning glucose. Now she's forcing her body to become good at burning fat. And that next phase that she's going through, her body has to become good at burning fat because she's giving it no choice. It's getting no glucose, so it has to become good at burning fat. But it's going to complain, it's going to drag its feet, and it can take some people up to 8 weeks. And as you can see, my 3rd week, I actually put weight on and I almost gave up. And I'm glad I didn't, because all of a sudden I started losing maybe 2 kilograms every week for about 15 weeks in a row. And so, that was once I was off to the races, I just lost weight consistently, which was now, and that's really, it's all important to know also, that's really how guys who are very diabetic lose weight.
Yeah.
Women lose weight at different rates.
Yeah, look at Karen Mangiacotti.
Yeah, she gained weight for the first 6 weeks.
That's right. And then she started losing it. And I chalk this up to the fact that women are smarter and more complex than men. I think their bodies have to do more. Yeah. Obviously, they have extra parts that we don't have, and they have extra hormone regulation that we don't have to deal with. Yeah. And I think it just takes longer for those things to correct themselves. And that's pretty much an observation that we've seen across the board with women on keto. And again, Brenda and Kim talk about this at length in the female show.
My partner, Julie, lost very little for the first 2 months. And then after that, she consistently lost about 1 pound a week for almost 18 months. And then she plateaued, and of course I lost everything in the first 5 months or so, and I was losing at a much faster rate. So we're all different. But the reason that we start losing weight is because when we become good at using fat for energy, you start burning fat for energy whether you are eating or not. And at that point, you never get hungry, and eating becomes optional. And then if you eat less because you aren't as hungry, you lose weight. So it's kind of simple.
Very good. Today's episode of Two Keto Dudes is brought to you by our friends at Keto Delivered. Each month, Keto Delivered sends you a care package full of new and delicious keto foodstuffs and recipes. Fresh, balanced, and responsibly sourced, low-carb, high-fat ingredients delivered right to your door every month. And you can support our podcast by signing up at the URL delivery.2keto.com. That's delivery.2keto.com. So, how much body fat is enough? How much is too much? Is it safe to be overweight? Is being overweight by itself a marker of any kind of disease? Well, the experts actually say yes, because they see a correlation between diabetes and obesity.
Yeah.
My understanding, and this came into sharp focus also after watching Ron Rosedale's talk, is that the body evolved to get us to reproduction age and through where we could pass on our genes. And after that, it really doesn't care about us.
Right.
So,
it doesn't, yeah. That post reproductive health is an entirely different thing to adolescent health, yeah.
Absolutely. So tweaking these things becomes important. But if you think about body fat, insulin makes you store blood sugar energy in the form of body fat because it's safer there.
That's it. And it stores it as saturated fat.
That's right.
Palmitic acid and oleic acid. So saturated monounsaturated fat.
Yeah, so the reason that obesity and diabetes go together is because your body is trying to prevent you from becoming diabetic by putting on fat. And when doctors inject you with insulin, or you inject yourself with insulin, you're essentially going to gain weight from all the sugar that's in your bloodstream.
That's because you're medicating a symptom.
Yeah,
you're trying. It's a symptomatic treatment. Taking insulin, if you are a type 2 diabetic, which is somebody who produces too much insulin and their body gradually becomes immune to it, or at least ignores the signal. Injecting insulin is simply going to treat the symptom. It's not treating the underlying cause.
Right. You still have diabetes. So, and we know how to reverse type 2 diabetes. We've both done it.
We have, yeah.
We know tons and tons of people who've done the same.
Yeah, hundreds of people in our forums have put up their hand and said, I started this process 6 months ago. I had diabetes. It's now not diagnosable from my blood test.
Right. And based on your blood work, my blood work, your coronary calcium scan that came back 0, my carotid artery scan that came back negative, we know we're healthy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're healthy. We're still overweight.
Right.
I still hope one day to get under 100 kilograms. That would be interesting, but I'm curious. But at this point, I can actually do some remarkable things with my body.
Yeah, me too.
I can fast for 7 days and then go out for a 100K bike ride. And that's a remarkable level of performance that I'm expecting from my body, and it just does it. It just does it so efficiently, and I can fast, and my metabolic rate almost doesn't have to drop because I have all that capacity, all that body fat that's sitting there. It's a stored energy for me. So,
and Lily said the same thing. She was almost afraid to go walking because she remembers what the pain was like, and it surprised her how her body was responding to performance. Yeah. And me too. I went for a couple of rides on my 3-wheeler, and I couldn't believe how I was taking hills in gear, not in the lowest gear, which I would do before. I'd get in a very low gear and just sort of, and I'd have to stop and catch my breath. I was in higher gears and just going up a hill and loving it. Loving it. Yeah. What's up with that? And I'm overweight. So we clearly know from our experiences that you can be both overweight and healthy at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just that overweight and diabetes, metabolic syndrome seem to correlate with each other because one almost prevents the other until you reach the tipping point, and then, there's no coming back from it unless you cut your carbohydrates.
I think it's post hoc reasoning, post hoc ergo propter hoc, after, therefore, because of reasoning. It's observed that people become overweight and then become diabetic, and it's assumed that because it's always in that order, that becoming overweight causes diabetes. And so we've associated obesity, or at least being overweight, with being diseased. People who are overweight eventually get heart disease. People who are overweight eventually get diabetes. And so it's assumed that there is a causal relationship there.
Yeah.
But in fact, it could actually be a third factor that causes both being overweight and becoming diabetic or getting heart disease. And it could be that the amount of time it takes to become overweight or become diabetic is slightly different. And that's why one happens before the other.
There's been a great example on, I believe it was TED Radio Hour or one of these podcasts on NPR. I'm an NPR podcast junkie, by the way.
Yeah.
There's a great example of this, which somebody found a correlation between ice cream consumption and drownings.
Wow.
Yeah, and drownings either in pools or at the ocean. And when ice cream consumption went up, drownings went up.
Is that because of summer?
That's it. You think to yourself, well, if we just got rid of all the ice cream, people wouldn't drown. I mean, can you imagine being able to draw that correlation and actually thinking they're related?
But that's what epidemiologists do.
Right, exactly. But people go swimming in the summer, so there's naturally going to be more drownings, and they eat ice cream in the summer. They don't eat ice cream in the winter.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the other one that we talked about in the cholesterol show is, we've noticed that whenever somebody's house burns down, there seem to be a lot of firefighters at the scene.
We should ban firefighters.
That's right. And then there won't be any more fires. There can be, and probably is, a third factor that you're not accounting for. That's why correlation does not equal causation. But I'll tell you what, it works the other way around.
Yeah.
Non-correlation means non-causation.
Correct.
So if you can't find a correlation, you can't find a cause.
They're not related, yes. So that's definitely true. So I guess the thing is, once you disassociate obesity with all of the diseases it normally travels with, like diabetes and heart disease, if we assume, and I think we've pretty much got the facts that define heart disease as being insulin related. At least there's a fairly good case for that being made.
Right.
And insulin resistance, or insulin resistance causing high insulin causing heart disease, insulin resistance causing high insulin causing diabetes, insulin would appear to be the root cause. Well, if you can lower your insulin enough to fix your glucose management, or if you can use a dietary strategy like a ketogenic diet, which reduces high levels of glucose coming in, so you don't end up having the high amount of insulin, having the high excursions of glucose, and therefore you reduce all of those diseases that travel with it. Is obesity, therefore, if it's disassociated from the diseases that it travels with, is obesity a bad thing?
It is not inherently dangerous in and of itself. As a result of a bad metabolism, it points to the bad metabolism, which is the difficult thing to deal with. But the obesity itself may or may not be dangerous. Yeah,
that's true. So, one study done in Denmark, which only came out it was published in JAMA this year in May of 2016.
Nice.
And the study, and we'll link it in the show notes, and the study refers to a change in body mass index associated with the lowest mortality in Denmark. Oh. This study was conducted between 1976 and 2013. And what they did was they tracked 120,000 people. Every 10 years they'd go in and they'd basically work out how many people have died of heart attacks or all-cause mortality, how many people have died from various things, and they track their BMI. This is the body mass index, and it's we've spoken about BMI before. It's kind of remedial math for doctors, but what it does do is it kind of attempts to work out a rough number for how obese you are.
It tries to do what the DEXA scan does without actually doing the direct measurement.
That's right. And it's notoriously bad. I mean, a good example is somebody who is quite large and muscular and has been weight training all their life and has been a former rugby player and likes to ride up mountains, like myself, actually carries a lot more muscle than somebody who has never done any exercise all their life. But we will still be regarded at the same level of obesity if we have the same height and the same weight.
Right.
So, that's a good example of where BMI is wrong. But the interesting thing about this study was that they looked at the BMI of people who succumbed to various illnesses, mortal illnesses.
So what did they find?
Well, they found that over the years of the analysis from 1976 to 2013, that the BMI that was associated with the lowest risk of death in 1976 was 23.7. So that's right in the ideal range. The ideal range is between 20 and 25. Overweight is between 25 and 30. Obese 1 is between 30 and 35. Obese 2 is 35 to 40. Obese 3 and then super obese. I started out my ketogenic diet, I was super obese. So that was in a range above 45.
All right. Can you unpack that for us? What does that mean?
It means that the people who were right in the middle of the ideal weight range in 1976 had the lowest risk of death. So, and that makes sense from a common sense point of view. So you would think that in 2013, when they went back to the same population, that the people who were in that 23.7 BMI would still have the lowest risk of death. And in fact, they found quite surprisingly that the people who had the lowest risk of death had a BMI in the range of 27, which is overweight.
Huh.
So people who were overweight, certainly Danes in this study, but let's just genericize and say people who are overweight live longer than people who have ideal body weight.
Interesting.
I'll just let that sink in.
And it is a correlation. It's not a causation, right?
That's right. We don't know why.
Yeah.
We don't know why. It could be that the entire population's BMIs are slightly increasing, but the risks are not related to body weight.
Right.
Could be one example.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yes, it is. So I guess this means that in the past 40 years that the weight category associated with the longest lifespan has gone from normal to squarely in the overweight camp, which suggests that either our classification for normal weight is wrong or that the link between our weight and our overall health is far more complicated than we thought.
I think it's number 2, but it could also be number 1. They could be both. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So what about fasting? I mean, when we talk about, ratios and macros, we're talking about it from the point of view of guys like us. We're overweight. Yeah. We have metabolic syndrome. We're not working out. We're not building, pumping iron all the time. What does it mean for people like us who fast?
So we know from the discussion during the protein controversy show that we have a transaction rate that we can withdraw energy from our bank balance of body fat.
Yeah.
And that turns out to be 30.5 kilocalories per day for each pound of body fat.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you might have $1 million in your bank account, but you have an ATM transaction limit of $5,000 a day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. I mean, you can say, okay, let's say I have 100 pounds of body fat on me. In theory, I can use 100 times, I guess the figure's about 3,500 kilocalories per pound is the rough figure that people use. So I can, in theory, use 1/3 kilocalories of body weight, but I can't use all of that in the first day.
Yeah, right.
So it turns out I can only use 30.5 kilocalories per pound. And it's I guess it's roughly 1/100th of each pound of body fat can be taken out in a day. So it would take you 100 days to draw through all of your body fat if you were able to consume that number of calories every day.
Okay. So for somebody who doesn't have body fat, fasting's going to be a problem. And I think Jason Fung said this when we interviewed him.
Yeah.
He says it's about 7% is about where you start getting into the danger zone. If you have 7% body fat, he thinks anyway.
Yeah. So I think that the math actually shows that it's quite a lot higher than that, because I know people in the 15 to 20 range who just cannot draw enough energy from their metabolism to not slow their body. So let's say you spend 2,000 kilocalories a day. That's your daily rate. And then you do something to your body that forces you to only have access to 1,500 kilocalories. Your body has to make up that difference of 500. It basically has to go into a budgetary crisis where it has to say, okay, there are some things that we cannot afford to do. Like we cannot afford to...
What are we going to cut?
We can't afford... Yeah, exactly. We can't afford the heating bills.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to... And that's one of the reasons why people who don't have a lot of body fat, who try to fast, that's one of the reasons why they feel cold all the time, because their metabolic rate is slowing down.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with slowing down your metabolic rate is that there is a starvation response that the body goes into when it can't find enough easy things to cut. It starts to drastically cut more important things, and you end up with long-term symptoms from that. And we had some examples of people on one of the other groups, not our group, but we're talking about a problem with intermittent fasting over long periods of time had a similar result to eating disorders, provoking a starvation response and what have you.
And as Jason Fung says, when this happens, your body will not just go directly to your bones and your protein and your muscles and stuff, but there are other things that it can recycle and get calories from, like skin, like unused white blood cells.
Collagen.
Like collagen,
Lipoproteins that it no longer needs for shuffling fat around your body. These are all available. And your body uses these proteins for energy. When you don't give it enough energy, you don't have enough body fat to be able to produce kilocalories of energy at the rate that your body wants to use them. Your body can choose to burn proteins for energy. And as we've discussed before, that's a very wasteful way of getting energy.
So perhaps a little body fat means more metabolic flexibility.
I think so. I think we can pretty much rule a line under that, because I can fast for days and days and days and then exercise at what would have been extreme levels for me, at least.
Yeah.
I would say cycling for 4 hours at 25 kilometers an hour is a fairly serious draw of energy, and my body just provides that. I have a slight metabolic slowdown because even the amount of body fat that I have, I cannot produce it at the rate that I'm drawing on it. But I can do remarkable things because I had that metabolic flexibility. And we have friends, and my partner Julie and one of our friends Nanette have both said that they themselves cannot water fast unless they have a small amount of fat, dietary fat, to help supplement that process. And I think that's the critical thing, that if you are trying a fast and you feel cold and you feel awful because your metabolic rate is slowed down, try a little butter, a small amount, maybe a teaspoon of butter, and see how it goes, and see if that provides an extra energy source to supplement the meager amount of energy that you can get from your body fat. And maybe that just puts you over the limit, and you can now run your metabolic rate at full speed. You're still drawing down body fat. Just because you have a teaspoon of butter doesn't mean that you've stopped getting body fat, energy from body fat. But I think that's the critical thing. So I guess I'd sum up all of this by saying that having an ideal body weight, being in that 20 to 25 BMI category, or having a body fat percentage in the 10% range, may not be all it's cracked up to be. You may not live longer. You may not live as well. You may not be able to perform as well. And there are some things that you might want to do, like you might want to fast for autophagy and for all of the other benefits. And you may have to supplement a little bit to be able to do that, as well as somebody who is normally overweight.
Very good. Well, we want to know what you think.
Sure do.
So definitely there's a lot of ways to get in touch with us and join the conversation. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But first, we got some recipes. Recipes. All right, I'm going to go first today.
Go for it.
All right. As I said before, one of the things that I eat when I'm trying to lower my protein, I need to increase my fat intake. Mm-hmm. I love brie. I love mushroom brie. I used to get this at my local cheese shop. It's a bit expensive, and I thought to myself, you know what? I can do that. I can make some of that. So here's what I do. I take about 2 cups of mushrooms, and I get Baby Bella mushrooms, but you can use whatever mushrooms you want, sure. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And I saute that in a few tablespoons of olive oil, little salt, 3 or 4 cloves of crushed garlic, a few twists of black pepper, maybe 8 to 10 twists of black pepper, and a little onion powder, because I love the flavor of onions, but I don't want all the carbs of sweet caramelized onions.
Sure.
So saute all that up for 10, 15 minutes or however long you think they need. And then I throw those in a food processor. Now, if you don't have a food processor, you can use a blender. If you don't have a blender, just get a cutting board and a knife and whack away.
Get vigorous.
Get vigorous. Take out your aggressions.
Right.
All right. Damn mushrooms. Okay. Then what I do, as we said earlier, I'm a wuss when it comes to rind. I don't like it, so I take it off of the brie. I take a whole triple cream brie, and I cut it up into thin, narrow slices, maybe 4 or 5 narrow slices, then cut it in half. So I have these pieces that I can easily deal with and hold in my hand without cutting myself. So then I just take a paring knife and pare off the rind. I was tempted to chuck all of this in the food processor and just whiz it up. However, I think it would probably gum up my food processor because brie is pretty sticky, you know?
Pretty sticky, yeah.
Yeah. So what I did is I just put it all in a bowl with the chopped mushrooms and just mixed it all up. And it took some effort, right? I had to start with a knife and then go to a big spoon and just keep mashing and mashing and mashing. But when you're done, man, let me tell you, take some of those Asiago cheese crisps I told you about on an earlier show.
Yeah.
Spread some of that on there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
It's that umami flavors, that protein flavors.
Umami up the wazoo.
Yeah.
So I had some more people over for a keto pizza night, which I've been doing in my town.
Okay.
And to turn people on to the ketogenic diet.
Yeah, well, we have to do this prior to Keto Fest because we want to turn the whole town of New London, Connecticut keto. So we're going person by person and introducing them to the diet. Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of my friends locally are interested and curious. And so a big shout out to Mark and Lou and Karen who came to dinner the other night. And the first thing I had was the cheese crisps and that's this brie. And it was like, oh, I'll try some of that. Oh, that is so good. It's like, yeah.
It is.
Welcome to my world, peeps. And we made a couple of shrimp scampi pizzas. Well, we made one, and then I made an Italian Carl's Head pizza, which is fathead pizza without the egg, essentially, on a pizza stone. And, Lou said after eating his second slice of pizza, he said, this is remarkable. I can't finish this.
Yeah.
I'm full. And this is only my second slice.
Yeah.
So anyone who's interested in doing this and holding a sort of a dinner party for your friends, a small group of friends, this is the perfect thing to make because it's so filling.
You know what you could do next time is get everybody to write on a piece of paper and keep it secret how many slices of pizza they think they could eat before the meal, before you talk about what the pizza is going to be. So, and they can all write down. I mean, for me, I would have had 2 large pizzas just by myself.
I could eat a large pizza before keto, easy.
Yeah.
I have eaten a large pizza by myself.
Right. So I would say 10, 12 slices of pizza I could eat without a problem.
Yeah.
The Carl's Head pizza, it's really 1.5. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm pushing to get that second slice of pizza in.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, and then of course we did the chocolate mousse and whipped cream for dessert, and I sold them. Yeah. I was just like, this is amazing. If I can eat like this every day, I'd be a happy man.
Wow.
Happy woman. So that's my recipe, Richard. What do you got?
Yeah, so I've got the meal that we ate tonight, which is a yakiniku pork belly soup.
Whoa, I love pork belly, man.
Yeah, well,
what's yakiniku?
Yakiniku is Japanese for grilled meat.
Huh.
And we saw this pork belly sliced very finely across the grain in Costco, and there was they were selling 2 kilos of the stuff. So this is going to be like 8 or 9, maybe 10 meals.
Wow.
It's basically it's bacon thickness, like a thickness of a thick piece of bacon, and it's the bacon cut, but it's not being cured, so it's just the pork belly.
Right.
Yeah, so we start off with 200 grams of the pork belly, but we didn't cook that immediately. We cooked that at the last minute. The first thing we want to do is we want to make the soup.
Yeah.
So we start off with 3 cups of homemade pork or ham stock soup.
Nice.
And I'm going to reduce that to about 1.5 cups. So it's reducing from 3 cups to 1.5 cups. So you get it on a simmer in a large pot, and I put the fan on. The trick is, if you put the fan on, it draws away the steam so that the pot has enough capacity to make more steam.
And let me tell you something. Cooking down a soup or a sauce and reducing it is the secret to flavor, kids.
I know.
This is what made Bobby Flay so famous.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've got this pot on the back burner, and on the front burner I have a fry pan, and I put a little bit of butter in there, and I'm making 2 meals, two bowls here. So I cut up about 50 grams of enoki mushrooms. These are long, thin Japanese mushrooms, and I just cut the tops off and put them aside because I'm going to put them at the end just to make the dish look nice.
Okay.
And so I chop up all of the rest of the mushrooms and I saute that in butter. And then I add 2 cloves of garlic, and I add about a teaspoon of root ginger grated, and I add a little bit of sesame oil. I'm rendering down all of those ingredients. And then what I did was I added those to the soup.
Yeah.
So that then is continuing to reduce. I now have a pan that has some flavorings of sesame oil, ginger, garlic, and enoki mushrooms.
Yeah.
And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my 200 grams of pork belly, sliced pork belly in that. And of course, it's so fatty that the fat all renders out, or not entirely renders out. You end up with that collagen matrix that the fat used to live in, with bits of fat still in it, and it's crackling, basically.
So do you cook it in the fry pan, or do you put it under a broiler, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I cook it in the fry pan, and it renders out some fat. So I'm ending up with about 1 centimetre of fat in there, but I'm not going to let that go to waste. I'm not going to toss that away because I'm going to put that in my belly. So once the pork belly slices have cooked and they're nice and brown, I take them out and put them aside, and they're going to go onto the meal at the last minute. Now I have the bowl at the back with the soup that is rendered down and is delicious. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some mandolin daikon root. Now, you know that I did daikon root as noodles the other day, a recipe for noodles.
Yeah.
Well, it's exactly that. I'm just taking noodled daikon using a mandolin, and I'm going to toss that daikon, raw daikon, into a julienned daikon into that pan full of hot pork fat. And it's going to soak it up, and it's going to go slightly brown, and it's absolutely delicious. It retains the crispness of the radish, but then it has this awesome fatty pork flavor to it.
Now, do you prefer daikon over shirataki noodles?
Yes, and the reason I prefer daikon is because it retains to the tooth.
The al dente.
Yeah, the al dente texture. Whereas the shirataki noodles are slimy. They're a little bit like a South Asian noodle, like a pad thai or similar rice noodle.
Yep.
The daikons are almost like perfectly cooked pasta, perfectly cooked spaghetti.
Wow.
It's got as your tooth goes through it, it just starts to give. So how I plate is I start off with a bowl. Put the stock in the bowl. I then put a swirl of the daikon on top of that, and then sitting on top of that daikon, I have my pork belly, and then I sprinkle the enoki over the top. I have pictures of this on our blog, and I will put the link to that in the show notes.
Richard, I'm coming over for dinner. Give me 2 days to get there.
Yeah, I've got like 10 days worth of supplies. So,
all right.
Awesome.
Well, of course, if you have anything you want to tell us, something we said wrong, something you don't agree with, or some more research you found to support or refute what we've said, send it by email to dudes@2ketodudes.com or post it on our website at 2ketodudes.com.
Yeah, and you can follow us on Twitter at 2ketodudes or Instagram at 2ketodudes. And of course, if you want to join our Facebook community, go to fb.2keto.com.
Yep. And if you're looking for a concise description of the ketogenic diet in a nutshell, you can go to booklet.2keto.com.
Yeah.
This is something that Richard and I wrote for getting together with people, and it's a great first introduction to it. It's not too long to read, 12 or 13 pages, and it covers a lot of things in depth. You can also find our recipe archive at recipes.2keto.com, and you can read our FAQ at faq.2keto.com. That's a show, buddy.
That was wonderful.
It's a good one. Keep calm and keto on, my friend.
Keep calm and keto on, Carl.
All right. We'll see you next time on Two Keto Dudes.